Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Olivia. Today I have my friend Heather
Finally.
joining us to talk about a serious topic. We want to put faces to women who have either A, been through trauma, or B, is currently going through trauma. And we understand that there are different kinds of trauma. I'll let Heather tell her story. Mine is my trauma that I've dealt with and still have some residual sort of side effects and things that I deal with. With that is I was molested as a child. And so we'll dive into that. But do you know how YouTube works? Please hit that like button and subscribe. I plan to use my platform to shed some light into my personal life and also real life situations and issues that we deal with. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please keep checking out my channel. So Heather, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. Pleasure to finally be here.
Yeah, it's been a minute. We had a little,
Yeah.
what do you want to call that? Falafel last week. We were supposed to
That was
record.
very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, we were supposed to record, but it rained. You live kind of a distance up north, Michigan, and your Wi-Fi just would not participate. So we reschedule for this week. So Heather, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, where do I start? I've been in the military now. I was in the Army. I enlisted right after high school, right after I graduated high school in 2004. I enlisted in the Army National Guard as a truck driver, of all things. And so I was in the Army National Guard from 2004 until 2014. And in that time span, I had two deployments. I was deployed in 2006 to 2007. That was to Iraq. And then in 2012 to 2013, I was in Afghanistan. So I did that. And then in 2014, by that point, I was like, I'd had enough. The culture, the Army culture, I was done. And I was pretty sure I would never put on a military uniform ever again. That was, let's see, I had a 1.5-year break and I finally got back in the Army National Guard. And I was in, I was in the Army National Guard again from 2015 to 2017. And then I transferred to the Air Guard. So, and I'm still in the Air Guard now, which is why I'm in Alpena.
Right. So Heather and I have something in common. I served in the Navy, US Navy for 4 years, and I also went in right out of high school. And so we met, how many years ago did we meet now? It's been a minute.
Wow.
We met at a workshop.
Was it 2019?
No.
Was it
I feel like it had to be.
I think it's 2019.
I feel like it was before.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because
I don't remember.
I know it's been a minute. I want to say yeah, it's been a minute, but we met at a workshop for veterans and military people who were wanting to brush up our resume and that kind of stuff. So we met then and we hit it off like straight away. The whole workshop, I think it was like over a couple of days, right?
Yeah. Wasn't it a week?
Maybe a week. Maybe
I think it was a week. Yeah.
So we sat next to each other. We had lunch. We talked. So we're like kindred spirits. But I want to say it had to be because I've been in my current position. I've been for 4 years. So it had to be like 5 years ago or more.
Oh my
Mhm.
gosh,
Yeah.
that's insane. That
Yeah.
honestly,
So,
that's
so we met and, we kind of just became right away instant friends.
yeah.
And so, you experienced some PTSD type of trauma related to your service. Talk a
Mhm.
little bit about that. Like what kind of trauma specifically did you experience?
Sure. So, I'm gonna be honest. After my first deployment, and even before I was deployed, when I was going through training, I was told how dangerous my job was. And it was, I'm not gonna lie, we get hit with roadside bombs. We're a primary target in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I knew, you know, what the situation was going to be like, but it's almost like it's almost like denial. For a very long time after my first deployment, um, I denied it. I didn't think that you know PTSD, I didn't see myself as somebody who had that. It was just, whatever. It just is what it is. I don't know.
Mhm.
It wasn't until, gosh, I want to say my second deployment, really. I can look back now and see that I was having those issues,
Yeah.
but it was denial. And it really, actually, even before my second deployment, I was supposed to deploy in 2011 to Kuwait, and I was found mentally unfit to deploy. And so I think that's kind of when it actually dawned on me that maybe there was a deeper issue.
Problem. Yeah.
Was
That
what, yeah,
you weren't
it was
willing to face.
right.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
that's probably when I realized, like, okay, we've got something here.
Right.
But funny enough, I was cleared by the state. I had to go in front of the state mental health care provider in Lansing, and they cleared me, and I was able to deploy to Afghanistan. I think it was like 3 months later. It was on my birthday. It was July 11th. So
Okay.
that's when I went to Afghanistan. And then, of course, that made things worse.
Mhm.
Uh, and to be even more honest, it just kind of, I figured that would be something that I would live with, the nightmares and the um just being more of a recluse and not being social and not trusting people. And I still struggle with that kind of stuff to this day.
Yeah.
Um
Which
yeah, it's
I
go ahead,
had
I'm
to
sorry.
do a little bit, I personally I didn't know a lot about PTSD, just like
Mhm.
general, but everything you mentioned are all symptoms of PTSD.
Yeah.
Kind of wanting to be a loner, kind of wanting to be
Mhm.
secluded,
Yeah.
those are all major signs of PTSD. So I don't want people to necessarily conclude that if you are a person who prefers to be by yourself, that
Yeah.
automatically you fall into the PTSD category.
Right.
No, there are differences, there are personality differences
Mhm.
where some people have not experienced any kind of trauma, but they just prefer
Yeah.
to be kind of by themselves, which is okay.
Sure.
But we want to highlight some of the signs and symptoms of PTSD,
Yeah.
and you can only really get diagnosed by a professional. So, one of the things that I advocate for is therapy,
Yes.
whether it's PTSD or other things, it could be depression or anxiety. I have issues with anxiety. It could be that. But your first step needs to be to reach out to a professional to
Mhm.
try to get that professional diagnosis,
Yes.
right?
And that's the toughest part,
Yes.
is coming to terms with it, because that's, again, something that I struggled with too, is the denial. Like, it's like, I think, in maybe, I don't know if you feel this way, but especially as a woman veteran, it's almost like there's almost like this feeling like I have to be strong, like I have to prove myself. And because bring these issues forward, people are just going to assume it's because I'm a woman and I'm a
Right.
sensitive person and
Yes.
emotional and brush it off, which has happened.
Yes.
You know, so it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I think that's that was the toughest part, is like what you said, is reaching out and
Yes. Yes.
getting the help. So,
And in doing my research, I found out that more women are diagnosed with PTSD than men, because women, we tend to be a little bit more proactive in wanting to get
Interesting.
treatment, in, you know, in just facing the issue. So this is not just a woman issue.
Right.
This is, you know, male deal with these too, but they tend to go undiagnosed longer until something more serious or devastating happens, where they're
Yeah.
forced to get treatment. And so, you know, there is absolutely no shame in seeking help, in seeking therapy, in seeking counseling. And yes, there is that mindset within veteran and members of the military within our group. There is that thought of, oh, we have to be strong all the time, women and men, right?
Yeah.
And yes, that's a great quality, to be strong. And yes, we are strong, but in the times where we have to admit that, hey, something's going on, it's okay to reach out for help. There is no shame in that at all. So, you know, don't feel like you have to suffer in silence, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that when you isolate yourself and when you don't share, it's easier for, you know, other things to happen, that, you know, the end result is not so good, right?
Yeah.
So it's better to ask for help and to seek help than to be by yourself and the bottom falls out.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I
Yeah.
think maybe, you know, I learned that the very difficult way,
Yeah.
and I know better now, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
for me, my trauma, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, has to do with being molested when I was a child, right? So I was probably about 7. There was two situations that occurred 2 different times in my life. So the first one, I was about 7 years old. So from 7 to 9, a friend of my family who resided in my family home, molested me. And he told me not to tell my family. And if I told my family, that they wouldn't believe me. And so I carried that with me, you know, during that whole time. And later in life learned that I was not his only victim. And so at a very early age, I looked at sex as something negative, right? As kind of a
Sure.
weapon that men, you know, used. And so that was that first 3 years of that incident. My mom sent me away to boarding school, not knowing what was happening, sent me away to boarding school to some people that she knew and trusted, and she paid them to, you know, ensure that I was getting a proper education and all of that. And it was during that time from 9 to 12, the second incident happened. And this was a member of their family, the family that my mother entrusted with me. A relative of theirs was molesting me for that time period from 9 to almost 13, when my mom came back. And so, you know, that such an early age, you know, 7, really not understanding what sex is and the whole man woman relationship, that totally tainted that for me for like years. I didn't talk to anybody about it until I was 18. I was getting ready to graduate high school.
Wow.
And I was not living in Jamaica with my mom. I was living in New York, and I'd call her on the phone to have this conversation with her about what happened. And she had no idea. So it was news for, it was totally news to her. But so that was my experience with that whole thing. And it's been a journey of, you know, having like a healthy relationship, you know, with a guy, and just how they view sex and all of that. So, you know, one of the big things I want parents to take away from this video, if you're a parent or a godparent or aunt, or you have children in your life, is really protecting them and really evaluating the people that they're around, right? Molestation doesn't just happen to girls, it happens to boys as well. And it oftentimes it's a family member. Over 50% of the incidences are a family member that molests a child. And you know, or an acquaintance of the family. You know, it's the smallest percentage is strangers. So, you know, really be mindful. My situation led me to, at becoming a parent, I was super hyper vigilant. Like, I didn't allow my kids to spend the night at places. And even the couple of places that they could spend the night at was people that I really knew and really trusted. And they knew my story. Like, I shared with them, like, I get anxious about this because of this. And so, particularly my daughter, who is going to be 26, she and I had a rough kind of relationship with regards to that, because she wanted to spend the night at her friend's house, and she didn't understand why I was so strict in not letting her spend the night. I would often organize where people came to our home, and it had to be trusted people. And so, you know, I had to explain to her at an early age about good touching and bad touching, and letting her know that, look, I am a safe place. If something happens to you, don't ever be afraid to talk to me about it. I'm going to be on your side. You know, we'll figure this out. And so I didn't get that. And I wanted to make sure that I gave my children that, and letting them know that, you know, should something happen like that, it wouldn't be their fault. It's not their fault. And so, you know, it's really important. Mom, dad, grandparents, foster care parents, whatever kind of position of authority you have in your child's life, is, you know, really communicating with them that it's, you know, their body, and there are things that will violate that, and to not stay silent, and to, you know, seek help. You know, whether you have to report it to the authorities or get Child Protective Service involved, but to do something, not disbelieve your child or tell them that it's, you know, it's their fault or they did anything wrong, right? So, yeah. So, you know, we have some subtopics that we want to touch on, right? At what age did you recognize that you had an issue and then seek professional help with PTSD? Or ballpark?
Well, yeah, I was probably in my, I want to say mid-20s, maybe 25. Yeah, I would say mid-20s. Yeah, I after my, definitely after my, I mean, I knew before my second deployment, but yeah, I would say mid-20s.
Okay.
And
was that help through the military, or was that private?
No, well, I mean, it was through the VA. So
Okay.
I went through the VA first, just because it was free.
Right.
You know, I figured I'd use my benefits or whatever.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's actually something I'm looking at doing, starting this month, is I'm going through the VA again. But yeah,
Okay.
how about you? I mean,
so for me, interestingly enough, I had stayed silent on the topic until I spoke to my mom when I was 18. And I went into the military at 19. And it was during that time, I don't even remember like the specific reason, but somehow either I wrote it on something or I spoke it, because they gathered a group of women and put us in this workshop. And it was a workshop to deal with women who were molested as kids. So, kudos to the Navy for
Yeah.
whether gotten us to talk about it verbally, to identify that we were in this category, or, we put it down on paper somehow and they put us in this group. So at 19 in this room, it was probably about 12 of us, girls, young ladies, and we were all super young, right out of high school. I was the only African American in that group, but it was at that time that I started getting professional help for it. I didn't know anything about therapy. I didn't know anything about counseling. The first, group was kind of weird, but it was weird on one hand, and it was also a little bit of a relief on the other hand, because it was then that I recognized I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
There were other girls, other women who experienced being molested. And so it was kind of like a sisterhood where, we compared stories and, went to this group therapy. Later on, I had some one-on-one therapy with myself, once I got out of the military. But my help started with the military identifying it and providing
That's amazing.
support for that. So that was, that was super, super important. I know some people, especially in communities of color, and I'm sure other communities too, but I can only speak from personal example.
Of course.
For me, therapy is considered like, a taboo, just pray about it.
Yeah.
Girl, just let that go, it's no big deal. Are you sure type situation. But those kinds of questions and those kinds of beliefs can end in, devastation, because, you're not hearing the person, right? You're not empathizing or even giving them a chance to really talk about their feelings. It's kind of like a brush aside. It's kind of push it under the rug. And we know things that get pushed under the rug and not get dealt with often does not end good for anybody. So really and truly, there is no stigma with getting some professional help, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Jeez.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, it's a tough topic to talk about, right?
Yeah.
I've had to share with my husband, it's my second husband. I had to share that with him in the beginning. I've had to share it with my kids. And, now at my age, I'm going to be turning 50 here soon. But at my age, I don't want to stay silent on things that I know can benefit or help or save someone else from the isolation and just feeling like, oh, I'm an alien. I'm, from something's wrong with me, so I, at my age, I just don't want to be silent about topics that are important. And so, people in my family who have not or are not aware of it will now be aware of it, because I don't feel ashamed because I didn't do anything wrong. No. Right. And so, yeah, I'm speaking my truth, and thank you for, being brave to speak your truth and, put a face to our issues.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to put a face to our issues. And so the next subtopic is what has helped you the most dealing with your with PTSD? What have you found to be the most helpful?
Maybe this sounds too mushy, but honestly, having the support system that I have now with Paul, my husband, because before we were together, I would say it was just getting by. It was even though I sought out therapy, it just, I don't know, I just didn't have that foundation that I needed,
right,
to get through. I would go to the sessions basically and come home and I would feel okay, I guess, for like maybe an hour after.
Yeah.
But then everything would just come back. As soon as, or, you know, especially as soon, like when I would go to sleep, you know, I'd go to sleep and I'd wake up and it would just be the same stuff, you know, the nightmares, and then waking up and not really feeling like I wanted to live anymore. And honestly, yeah, having that foundation, that support system, somebody that is rooting for me, basically. I know it's kind of cheesy and maybe a little
Not
cliche,
cheesy at
but
all.
yeah,
Not cheesy at all.
just having that person. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say that for sure.
So, it's interesting that you say that, because there is so much value in, you don't just seek treatment for your mind, right?
Mhm.
It needs to be like a whole thing. You need a support
Yes.
system outside of that. And so, like you, in my first marriage, I shared initially, but I don't think necessarily it was a good support system. There was empathy and all of that. And so, yeah, I didn't feel whole, and I didn't feel like I had, that support in that partner. My husband, who, he's been my husband now 13 years, totally different situation. I can talk to him about anything, and I know that he's rooting for me. And, if I hit rock bottom, it's not a me thing, it's a us thing. And so
Yeah.
it's really
Yes.
important. Yes. The biggest help has been, it's twofold. It's A, and yes, getting that
Yes.
professional support, but B, having a support system outside of that. And, yes, my number one support system is my husband, but I also have friends, who I trust and love,
Yes.
who has experienced some of these kinds of issues. And so I know that I can call them, and, if I'm having a bad day, and, I can rely on them. And so it's so important, guys, to, make sure that you have a support system outside of counseling, or just even another backup support group, right? It's a whole treatment. You want to feel like you belong, and you want to get that professional help to identify the issue and strategies of how to deal with them and all of that, but you need additional support. And so, yes, yeah, I would agree. I have the same answer as you.
Yeah.
So we're wrapping up our time. Heather, thank you so much for being open, being vulnerable, and sharing your experience of dealing with post-traumatic stress and what has helped you, and all of that, identifying it. And, we're going to continue the conversation, maybe a little bit later down the road. But guys, I hope that you found this information educational, informative. If you need more information, definitely start with Google. There is CPS, there is, I need my reading glasses, there's 800 numbers. National Center for PTSD has a lot of information. And also with anything having to do with molestation or sexual assault, 1-800-656-4673. Every state have that. Also RAIN. So thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.
I'm going to end the recording, and then I'll call you.